The harbor. It was a frigid, moonless night in the coastal town of Harbor's End. The bitter wind howled off the icy waters, and the deserted streets cast long shadows under the dim glow of streetlights. Rachel and I, both 15 years old at the time, were making our way home after a late movie. The town felt like a ghost town, with most residents choosing to stay indoors due to the biting winter cold. As we strolled along the deserted streets, the distant sound of dogs barking reached our ears. Rachel and I exchanged glances, puzzled by the notion that the canine noise could carry so far. We brushed it off as a mere curiosity and continued our walk home. Yet, an unsettling feeling began to gnaw at the edges of our minds. With each step we took, my unease grew. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched by something through the darkness, a potential threat even. Finally, as we reached a dimly lit street corner, something happened. Out of nowhere, a chilling rustle emerged from the shadow. Reacting on pure instinct, like anyone else would, we jumped backwards. Emerging from the bushes was a figure unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was taller than any man, easily exceeding 7 feet in height. It was also entirely white, as if it were crafted from a pale, unearthly material. Its hairless head had an almost otherworldly glow under the streetlight. Terror seized us both, and without uttering a word, we bolted. Rachel's voice pierced through the night, desperately yelling at me to wait. I didn't stop until I glanced back and saw what was chasing my friend and I. It was something indescribable, a grotesque being with elongated limbs and a hauntingly distorted visage. Despite the terror that gripped our hearts, we were hometown kids who knew these streets like the backs of our hands. We zigzagged through the alleyways and shortcuts, hoping to outmaneuver whatever was pursuing us. The adrenaline surged through our veins as we darted in and out of alleyways. Then, we finally found a deserted building site to hide in. We hid in silence, our breaths heavy and panicked, waiting for what felt like hours. The only sounds were our hearts pounding in our chests and the cold, desolate wind that whistled through the empty structure. Finally, we mustered the courage to venture out and make a run for our homes. That night, we returned safely, with our hearts still racing and our minds filled with wonder of what that was. We never spoke about what we'd seen again, but the image of that tall, hairless, white figure is hard not to recollect. The Southwest. In the arid, desolate landscape of the Southwest, the sun dipped below the horizon. My friend Dave and I had arranged to meet up with a couple of fellow adventure seekers. We wanted to explore a remote cave rumored to hold untold mysteries. The remote location meant their journey was already fraught with unease, and as darkness descended, their anticipation was mixed with trepidation. As the minutes turned to hours, the absence of their companions began to gnaw at them. Dave contemplated whether the friends of ours had decided to venture into the cave without us. Determined to catch up, we set off for the cave, with our flashlights cutting through the dark. The cave's entrance was ominous, its mouth yawning like a gaping maw. There was also just plain silence in the air, which made everything way creepier than usual. Random echoes would bounce off the cavern walls, so we would feel like we were never alone. As we explored deeper into the cave, the sense of foreboding grew more pronounced. Our instincts told us to flee, but our experience told us to stay. We eventually retreated, telling ourselves that it was a good idea to do so. But as we reached the cave entrance, Dave froze. He looked up and was met with a sight that defied all reason. A humanoid creature with the body of a man and the weird appearance of a bat. Its leathery wings unfurled, blotting out the feeble moonlight that filtered into the cave. Its eyes bore into my soul, a piercing, predatory stare that made me want to curl up in a ball. While Dave tugged at my arm, I finally snapped out of the trance and we sprinted back to the truck with screeches echoing behind us. This night had become a nightmare, and we had no intention of staying a part of it. Our truck roared to life, tires kicking up dust and gravel as we sped away from the cursed vicinity. Our ordeal was far from over, because as we raced through the desert, we saw an owl by the side of the road. Its unblinking eyes followed us with an unnatural intensity, and it felt like an omen, and a bad one at that. Our hearts raced faster as we continued driving. We didn't stop until we reached the nearest town, and our minds, now a chaotic jumble of fear, made us feel like this night was all made up. Now we have the non-stop memory of a creature that we're damn sure wasn't a part of any book or TV show. It was something real. The Churchyard. Around 10:30 in the evening, my sister and I embarked on a late-night walk. Our path led us through a quiet churchyard and then across some desolate fields. We relished the tranquility and serenity of the night, its stillness broken only by the soft leaves and distant chirping of crickets. As we approached an enclave in the next field, the serene atmosphere was abruptly shattered by a sound so unnatural. The scream that pierced the silence was unlike anything we'd ever heard before. It defied categorization, a horrific fusion of high-pitched and guttural tones. It was like a human scream intermingled with agony of a dying animal. The hair on the back of our necks stood on end. We ended up pushing forward. Despite the creeping fear that coursed through our veins, our path was eventually blocked by a hedge, obstructing our view of whatever lurked beyond it. We exchanged uneasy glances, but our desire to understand the source of this unearthly scream compelled us to proceed. We decided to peer over the hedge. Standing there, a sinister silhouette loomed before us. This tall and crooked creature looked like a human and something else entirely. Its hunched back contorted as if it was weighed down by different intentions, and its head stretched forward. Its mouth had jagged, serrated teeth that looked like they were able to cut into anything. We gasped, frozen by the nightmarish vision before us. This abominable being was neither fully human nor animal. We were paralyzed by fear, and we could do nothing but watch this figure lurch closer to us. Eventually, it screamed at us, and we immediately fled. We ran as if our lives fully depended on it, and in that moment, they probably did. We ran through the churchyard, past the fields, and beyond. Thankfully, it didn't follow, but part of me thought it did, and it was just waiting for the right time to show itself.